What is going on, everybody? How you all doing out there? I hope this video is finding you well. Welcome or welcome back to Get Right On In. My name is Andrew, for those of you who do not know, and today I thought I would go over 10 tips for travel writers, especially since I am coming at you from my hotel room at the Element Bend in Bend, Oregon. I have had a great time out here. By the time this video comes out, I won't have my Oregon vlog ready yet, but I will have a link down to my travel blog and my travel vlog in that description box for anyone who is interested in keeping up with my travels. But today for this channel, I just wanted to give some tips for travel writers or budding travel writers or people who are interested in travel writing. So now with all of that out of the way, without further ado, let's get right on in. Alright, tip number 1. Decide between a blog post or an article. This doesn't always necessarily actually have to deal with the length of the post. I did have some information on this in my intro to blogging video a couple of months ago, but when it comes to travel writing, this is definitely just something to keep in the back of your mind. Articles tend to be a little bit more research based and come across more as like a chapter out of a book. There's a lot more prose, enriching language, and much more of a story for the readers to connect to. Blog posts are usually just as informational, but just not written as much like, as the sun spun its way through the sky and burned light through the lining of the clouds, we trudged forward through the icy mountainside, our spiked shoes acting as our only lifeline. Blog posts tend to be a little bit more like listicles or roundups or reviews on certain things, or just talking about the experience you had outside of, like I said, writing it as though it were a chapter out of a book. I'd say for your own website, focus more on the blogs. The articles are the ones that you should be pitching out to other websites or magazines and such, which is always a lot easier said than done, but hey, any effort is good effort. Number 2, utilize the keywords you use to your advantage. When you are visiting a place or planning a trip, what do you look up? Are you looking for coffee shops, restaurants, things to do? Pay attention to those keywords that you're typing out when you're doing your own research. Chances are there are plenty of others out there looking to do the same things as you are, and the closer you can get to the first page, if not the first slot on Google for certain keywords, the more traffic you're gonna get to your website. For example, as of this recording, if you were to type in Best Coffee Monterey, the first article that pops up for the Monterey Bay food tours was written by yours truly. Number 3, share with the businesses you write about. Part of the reason that I had so much success in that blog that I wrote for when I was doing the Monterey Bay food tours was because of our relationship with the businesses that I wrote about. Even working for myself, I have found that people like to be written about. Well, sometimes. I've also found that people can tense up very quickly when they find out that you're writing about them. The truth is, not all writers are actually very nice. In fact, if you've got the word critic attached to your job title anywhere in that description, don't be as surprised if people aren't super willing to work with you from the start. Personally, I am all about promotion. Even if there's something that I don't like about somewhere, I don't focus on that. If I have a bunch of negative, I'd rather just write nothing at all and move on to do something else that I find a lot more exciting. So share your work with the people you're writing about, assuming that it's not defamatory anyway, because if they in turn share your work with their own following, then that just increases traffic to your website and also adds to the external places linking back to your site, which is never a bad thing when it comes to Google and SEO. Number 4, when possible, make contact. There's 2 parts to this advice. The first being, if you know that there's an event or something that you want to do that's coming up, try to reach out to whoever is in charge of sales. Introduce yourself, tell them about what you're doing and why, and ask if they ever consider working with bloggers or influencers, depending on the verbiage you want to use. If you're still new to the game and growing your website, don't fall into the imposter syndrome. This is actually something that I recently learned myself. You don't have to have a gajillion followers to work with companies or brands or anything like that. I certainly don't have the biggest following in the world, but when I first was starting my website, I was able to work with the Santa Cruz Boardwalk, the Winchester Mystery House. Recently, I just paired up with the Wildlife Safari up here in Oregon, and I wouldn't have been able to do any of that if I had fallen under imposter syndrome, so even if you're new and growing, don't be afraid to reach out. The other piece of advice here is to pay attention to the people paying attention to you. If you've noticed someone has viewed your LinkedIn profile or something and you think that you could be valuable to them, reach out, introduce yourself, see what happens. Likewise, pay attention to the people who follow you. An Oregon PR firm called Broussard Communications followed me on Instagram, and I reached out, I introduced myself to them, I ended up pairing with them, they ended up assigning this room to me. So don't be shy, make contact, because you literally never know what is going to happen. Number 5, look for these PR firms. So I'll be honest, this Broussard Communications is the first time I have worked with a PR firm, but I am very hopeful that it will not be the last time. If you can partner with one, it's only gonna help you in your search for looking for things to do or places to stay. PR firms are all about the promotion for their clients. And at that, it's a lot easier to work with certain brands and companies when you're coming from a PR firm as opposed to just doing it yourself. The PR firms are a trusted source, and so me as a blogger might not have been able to pull off this hotel stay by myself by just being a blogger. Reaching out to the Element Bend might not have worked as well if it wasn't coming from Broussard Communications. Not to say that nothing would have happened, because obviously I don't know, but it sure didn't hurt having a PR firm on my side. So look for some local PR firms or some PR firms in the areas that you're visiting, and again, reach out, introduce yourself, make contact, see what happens, and never ever please never ever get discouraged by a no. That is probably the most detrimental thing you could ever do to your career, is to just let any no deter you from ever trying again. Number 6, don't expect free things. Listen, I'll be honest, not having to pay for stuff sometimes is really nice, but it has not and will not ever become an expectation. If you're only willing to write about places that you don't have to pay for, I think you might be in the wrong line of work. And if you do get some stuff for free, try to make sure you're putting your best foot forward when you are doing the write-up for that place. Ultimately, try and remember that you are there for them. You are utilizing your words and your experiences to captivate your audience and show them your experience through your eyes. So if there's a company out there who is willing to work with you, please just try not to take advantage of that. And please don't expect them to comp a bunch of stuff for you. That is how us writers get a bad rap, okay? Number 7, dress for the job. I'm not necessarily talking about physically here either. I certainly don't expect you to get donned up in a suit and tie when you're going out hiking for the day. But bring along your computer and your cameras and anything else that makes you look like you're a travel writer or a photographer or something of the sort, and that you're just out there living your best life. I go on hikes with all of my stuff, and I'm now frequently asked if I'm researching anything or if I'm just out in the office. I am now both, and any question that comes along like that is also an opportunity for me to discuss what I'm doing and to show people toward my website or my vlog or anything in between. Part of this advice also comes back to self-thinking. It is very easy to fall into the idea of imposter syndrome. Even though I have literally written more than one article that sits in the #1 spot on Google, whether for myself or a client, I still get lost in the idea of thinking that I am an imposter. So I am just as guilty, but we've all got to stop doing that to ourselves, okay? You are a travel writer, so go and be one. Number 8, every opportunity is an opportunity to work. Like dressing for the job, you have the opportunity of turning basically almost anything into a writable experience. Every time you go to a restaurant, take a bunch of pictures, write up a 300-word minimum review, share it with the restaurant, and don't get discouraged if they never get back to you. Just utilize every opportunity you have to make work for you. That's what happens in this travel writer's life. These free things are really not just handed over the way that you might think. There's a lot of work that goes into all of this, especially if you're taking and editing your own photos, or if you also have a travel vlog like I do myself as well. A lot of work goes into this, but there is always an opportunity out there, and all I can say is to just take those opportunities as they come. Number 9, double check your chargers, your batteries, and your memory cards. And don't roll your eyes at me, okay? I have been without a battery. I have forgotten and lost chargers. My memory card has been full. It's not like that stuff never happens, but it's also not like it happens all the time. time. But since these things are so menial, it is just very easy to overlook them when you're trying to focus on everything else you need for the trip. So I inserted it here as a little bit of practical advice for you, so you just remember. It is better to take 5 minutes to go back through all your stuff to make sure you have everything than it is to potentially miss out on an amazing experience that might have ended up becoming the best thing you've ever written. Just saying. And finally, number 10, there is always something interesting. Honestly, this is incredibly important to remember. No matter where you are, someone somewhere is going to think that you and what you're doing and where you are is interesting. Even if you think there's nothing exciting going on around you, that doesn't mean automatically that the entire world agrees. And if you live in an area, okay fine, I am looking at you Midwestern states that aren't exactly known for being the most exciting in general, talk about your favorite things to do anyway. I hear rafting down rivers while day drinking is a fun thing to do out in the Midwest. I've never done that, but it sure sounds exciting to me. Something I think I learned in North Dakota that really stuck with me is super about the idea of perception. Mountains to one person may represent majesty, and to others it may represent oppression. So always keep that perception in the back of your mind. And there we have it, folks. 10 tips for you travel writers out there. Are there any that I missed? Anything that you have questions about that I might be able to talk about in a future video? You let me know down in those comments. I am loving living my life right now as a travel writer, and like I said, all my travel stuff is linked down in that description box if you'd like to follow along and join me on all of these fun little journeys that I am doing, because I literally am living my best life right now. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you all in the next one, and if you like this video, I'd love it if you considered giving it a little thumbs up, as well as potentially pressing on that little subscribe button and joining me Tuesdays and Thursdays and sometimes Sundays for some bookish and writerly and entertainment-y-esque content just like this. In the meantime, I hope you all have a day just as beautiful as you, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!